If you were trapped in a basement with your children while an entire army bombed the city above you, how long could you survive? No food, no water, no escape. Just darkness, explosions, and the terrified screams of your kids asking when it would end. 68 days. That's how long Anna Bergmann and her two daughters lived in a Berlin basement in 1945 while the Soviet Red Army destroyed the city block by block. She wrote everything down, every bombing, every death, every prayer that they'd survive one more night. This is her diary, and what she witnessed will stay with you forever. Berlin, Germany, January 1945. Anna Bergmann was 34 years old, a school teacher, mother of two daughters, Greta, age 9, and Liesel, age 6. Her husband, Friedrich, had been drafted into the Wehrmacht in 1943, sent to the Eastern Front. She hadn't heard from him in 14 months. She didn't know if he was alive or dead. Anna lived in a modest apartment in the Prenzlauer Berg district of Berlin. 3 rooms, a small kitchen, a balcony overlooking the street where Greta and Liesel used to play. Used to. By January 1945, Berlin wasn't safe anymore. Allied bombing raids had been hitting the city for years, but now they were constant. American bombers during the day, British bombers at night. And everyone knew what was coming next. The Russians. The Red Army had pushed through Poland. They were 200 miles from Berlin. Then 100. Then 50. Every day, refugees streamed into the city from the east, families fleeing the Soviet advance. They brought stories, terrible stories, about what happened when the Red Army captured German towns. Anna didn't want to believe the stories. She told herself they were exaggerated. Propaganda meant to scare people. But deep down, she knew the truth. Germany had invaded the Soviet Union, had killed millions of Soviet civilians, had burned their cities, starved their people. Now the Red Army was coming for revenge, and Berlin would pay the price. Anna made a decision in February 1945. She would prepare for the worst. She started gathering supplies, canned food, dried bread, water in bottles and jars, candles, matches, blankets. She hid everything in the basement of her apartment building. The basement was shared by all 12 families in the building. It was damp, dark, and smelled like mold, but it had thick concrete walls. It would protect them from bombs. If the bombing got bad enough, Anna would take Greta and Liesel down there. They would wait out the attacks, stay safe underground. She hoped it wouldn't come to that. By March, the Allied bombing intensified. Every night, the air raid sirens wailed. Anna would wake the girls, bundle them in coats, and rush downstairs to the basement. They'd huddle there for hours, listening to the bombs falling, feeling the ground shake, praying their building wouldn't take a direct hit. Then the all clear would sound. They'd go back upstairs, survey the damage, clean up the broken glass, try to sleep before the next raid. This became normal. Wake up, go to the basement, come back, repeat. Greta stopped going to school. There was no school anymore. The teachers had fled or been drafted. The building had been bombed. Liesel stopped asking when Papa would come home. Anna didn't have an answer. Life became about survival, finding food, staying warm, avoiding the bombs, and waiting for the inevitable. April 16, 1945. The Battle of Berlin began. The Red Army launched a massive assault from the east. 2.5 million Soviet soldiers, 6,000 tanks, 7,000 aircraft. Against them, whatever was left of the German military. Old men, boys as young as 14, a few exhausted Wehrmacht units pulled from other fronts. It wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. The Soviets surrounded the city, cut off all escape routes. Then they began the slow, brutal work of taking Berlin street by street, block by block, building by building. Anna heard the artillery in the distance, a constant rumble, like thunder that never stopped. She made another decision. She wasn't leaving the basement again, not until it was over. On April 20th, Anna packed everything they had left: food, water, clothes, photographs, Friedrich's letters, her diary. She took Greta and Liesel by the hand and led them down to the basement. Other families from the building were already there, 12 families, 37 people total, all crammed into a space meant for storage, not living. They brought whatever they could carry, blankets, food, candles. The heavy wooden door to the basement was reinforced with sandbags. Someone had painted a sign on it. Luftschutzkeller, air raid shelter. Anna found a spot in the corner. She spread out blankets on the concrete floor. This would be their home now. She didn't know for how long. She didn't know if they'd ever leave. The first night was the hardest. Liesel cried. She wanted to go home. She didn't understand why they had to sleep in the dark basement. Anna held her, whispered that it would be okay, that this was an adventure, that they'd go home soon. But Greta was old enough to understand. She sat quietly, staring at the wall, saying nothing. The other families settled in. Some tried to sleep. Others talked in low voices. A few prayed. Then the bombing started. Not Allied bombers this time. Soviet artillery. The sound was different, deeper, more violent. The explosions were closer. The building shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Someone screamed. A man near the door shouted, "Stay calm! The walls will hold!" The walls held. But the bombing didn't stop. It went on all night, all the next day, all the next night. There was no more day or night, just darkness and explosions. Anna started writing in her diary by candlelight. Short entries, just a few sentences each day. April 21st. The bombing is constant. We can hear Soviet soldiers in the streets above. They're close, very close. April 22nd. Liesel won't eat. Greta is coughing. I think she's getting sick. We're running low on water. April 23rd. A shell hit the building next door. We heard it collapse. I don't know if anyone was inside. Days blurred together. The basement became their entire world. 37 people living in a space no bigger than a large classroom. No windows, no ventilation. The air grew stale and thick. The smell was unbearable. Sweat, unwashed bodies, the chemical toilet in the corner that overflowed after a week. Food ran out faster than expected. The families pooled their supplies, but 37 people eat a lot. The canned goods were gone by the end of the first week. They rationed what was left. A piece of bread per person per day. A cup of water, nothing more. Children cried from hunger. Adults tried to stay strong, but you could see the fear in their eyes. Anna's diary entries grew shorter, bleaker. April 28th. Greta's cough is worse. She has a fever, no medicine. We gave her the last of our water. April 30th. Someone said Hitler killed himself yesterday. I don't know if it's true. I don't care. The bombs keep falling. May 2nd. We haven't seen daylight in 12 days. Liesel asked me if the sun still exists. I told her yes, but I'm not sure anymore. The children stopped playing, stopped laughing. They just sat in the darkness, staring at nothing. Some of the adults started losing hope. Herr Schultz, an older man from the third floor, stopped eating. He gave his rations to the children. He said he'd lived long enough. 3 days later, he died, quietly, in his sleep. They couldn't bury him, couldn't take him outside. So they wrapped his body in a blanket and moved it to the farthest corner of the basement. 2 more people died that week. An elderly woman, a teenage boy who'd been wounded by shrapnel before they came down to the basement. The infection killed him. 3 bodies in the corner, wrapped in blankets. The living tried not to look at them. By mid-May, the Soviet assault reached their neighborhood. They could hear the fighting directly above them now. Gunfire, grenades, shouting in Russian and German. Buildings collapsed, fires raged. The entire city was being destroyed. One night, an explosion shook the basement so violently that part of the ceiling cracked. Concrete and dust rained down. Everyone screamed. But the walls held. Anna pulled her daughters close and whispered prayers. Not to God. She'd stopped believing God was listening. She prayed to Friedrich, wherever he was, dead or alive. She prayed he'd somehow protect them. The next morning, the fighting moved on. The neighborhood fell silent. That's when Anna realized something. Silence was worse than explosions, because silence meant the Soviets had won. They controlled the streets, and soon they'd start going building to building, looking for survivors. May 8, 1945. Germany surrendered. The news filtered down through survivors who ventured outside. The war was over. The fighting had stopped. But Anna didn't feel relief. She felt terror. Because now came the part everyone had been whispering about. What happened when Soviet soldiers found German civilians, especially women? Anna had heard the stories, from the refugees, from the whispered conversations in the basement. Soviet soldiers were taking revenge, looting, burning, raping. Anna made a decision. She wouldn't leave the basement. Not yet. They'd wait, see what happened. The other families argued. Some wanted to leave immediately, find food, find help. Others agreed with Anna. Wait, stay hidden. In the end, 7 families left. 22 people climbed the stairs and emerged into daylight for the first time in 18 days. Anna stayed, along with 4 other families. 15 people total, including Greta and Liesel. They sealed the basement door with sandbags from the inside, made it look abandoned, and they waited. That night, they heard voices above, Russian voices, loud, drunk, boots stomping through the building, doors being kicked in, glass breaking. A woman screamed, then another. Greta looked at Anna with terrified eyes.
Mama, what's happening?
Anna covered Greta's ears, held her tight, tried to block out the sounds. The screaming went on for hours. No one in the basement spoke, no one moved. They barely breathed. When morning came, the voices were gone, but the screaming stayed in Anna's mind forever. 3 more weeks passed. The 15 people in the basement survived on almost nothing. The food was gone. The water was gone. They drank rainwater that leaked through the cracks in the ceiling. People grew weak, sick, delirious. Liesel stopped talking. She just stared at the wall. Greta's fever came back, worse this time. She was burning up, shaking. Anna had no medicine, no way to help her. On May 29th, Greta whispered, "Mama, I'm cold." Anna wrapped her in every blanket they had, but Greta kept shivering. That night, Greta died in Anna's arms. She was 9 years old. Anna didn't write in her diary for 3 days after Greta died. When she finally picked up the pencil again, she wrote only one sentence. God has abandoned us. June 1945. The basement was a tomb. 4 people had died. Their bodies lay in the corner, wrapped in blankets that no longer hid the smell. The survivors were walking skeletons, hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, skin stretched tight over bones. Anna looked at Liesel and saw death. Her daughter was fading. She barely moved, barely breathed. Anna made a final decision. She had to get Liesel out, had to find food, medicine, help, even if it meant facing the Soviets. On June 8th, 68 days after they'd entered the basement, Anna picked up Liesel and carried her to the stairs. The other survivors watched in silence. Too weak to stop her, too weak to follow. Anna climbed the stairs, her legs shook. She hadn't walked more than a few steps in 2 months. She reached the door, pushed it open. Daylight blinded her. For a moment, Anna couldn't see anything, just white light, bright and painful. Then her eyes adjusted. Berlin was gone. The city she'd known her entire life had been erased. Every building on her street was destroyed, collapsed, burned. Rubble as far as she could see. Bodies in the street, German, Soviet. No one had buried them. The smell of death was everywhere. Anna carried Liesel through the ruins. She didn't know where she was going, just kept walking. She passed Soviet soldiers. They looked at her, didn't stop her. Maybe they saw she was already dead, just hadn't fallen yet. After an hour, Anna found a Red Cross station, a makeshift tent set up by Allied forces. Doctors, nurses, supplies. Anna collapsed at the entrance. Liesel fell from her arms. A nurse rushed over, checked Liesel's pulse. "She's alive, barely. We need to get her inside." They carried Liesel away. Someone gave Anna water, bread. Anna couldn't swallow. Her throat had forgotten how. A doctor examined her, told her she was severely malnourished, dehydrated, lucky to be alive. Anna nodded, but she didn't feel lucky. She asked about Liesel. The doctor said, "We're doing everything we can." Anna waited. 3 hours later, the nurse came back. Her face told Anna everything. Liesel was gone. She'd died from starvation and dehydration. Her body had given up. 6 years old. Anna Bergmann survived the war, but she lost everything. Her husband Friedrich never came home. She learned later he'd been killed in Poland in March 1944, a year before the basement. Her daughters Greta and Liesel both died in 1945, one from sickness, one from starvation. Her home was destroyed. Her city was rubble. Her country had been defeated. Anna had nothing left. She stayed in Berlin, worked for the Red Cross helping other survivors, tried to rebuild something from the ashes. She never remarried, never had more children. She carried Greta's and Liesel's photographs in her pocket every day for the rest of her life. In 1970, Anna was contacted by a historian researching civilian experiences during the Battle of Berlin. The historian asked if Anna had any records, any documents from that time. Anna went to her small apartment, opened a drawer she hadn't touched in 25 years. Inside was her diary, the one she'd kept in the basement. 68 days of entries, handwritten, stained with dirt and tears. She gave it to the historian. "I wrote everything," Anna said. "Everything we went through. I don't know why. Maybe so someone would remember. Maybe so the world would know what happened to us." The historian read the diary, every page. When he finished, he had tears in his eyes. "This needs to be preserved," he said. "Even need to read this, to understand." Anna shook her head. "No one wants to read about Germans suffering. We were the enemy. We deserved what happened." The historian looked at her. "You weren't a soldier. You weren't a Nazi. You were a mother trying to save your children. That's not the enemy. That's a human being." Anna didn't respond, but she let him keep the diary. Anna Bergmann died in 1982 at the age of 71. She was buried in a cemetery in Berlin, near where her apartment building used to stand. The one with the basement where she'd spent 68 days in hell. Her diary was published in 1985 as part of a collection of civilian accounts from the Battle of Berlin. It's now in the German Historical Museum, preserved behind glass. Visitors read it every year, German and foreign, young and old. They read about the basement, the darkness, the hunger, the fear. They read about Greta and Liesel, and they remember. War doesn't just kill soldiers. It kills mothers, children, innocent people who never wanted any of this. Anna Bergmann's diary makes sure we never forget that. The Battle of Berlin lasted from April 16th to May 2nd, 1945. Over 100,000 German civilians were killed. Many more were wounded. Hundreds of thousands fled the city. The exact number who hid in basements like Anna's will never be known. But estimates suggest tens of thousands of Berliners spent weeks or months underground. Most survived, but they carried scars, physical and mental, for the rest of their lives. Anna Bergmann was one of millions of civilian casualties of World War II. People who never fired a gun, never wore a uniform, never wanted war. But war came for them anyway. Her diary is a reminder. There are no winners in war. Only survivors and ghosts. Tomorrow, we're sharing a different story. an American soldier who found a German diary in a bombed-out building in 1945. He kept it for 50 years before finally getting it translated. What he read changed how he saw the enemy forever. Subscribe to the Letter Archive, because every voice, even those we were taught to hate, deserves to be heard.